All right, hello guys. Today we are talking all about the benefits of strength training for mountaineering. Now, this is such an important subject for any mountaineer to very much understand and utilize in their training. And there's so many incredible reasons why strength training should be a cornerstone of any mountaineer's prep. But unfortunately, in the adventure world, strength training really is incredibly undervalued and underutilized, but it does have so many amazing potential benefits. So today we're going to be exploring a little bit deeper into the benefits of strength training. So hopefully you can walk away from this presentation and you can really understand exactly what you're trying to achieve with some type of strength training in your preparation and really have an insight into just how important it is. So to start things off, if you haven't met me before or you're not aware of what I do, my name is Rowan Smith. I'm the founder of Summit Strength, which is an online personal training service which specializes in working with trekkers and mountaineers. Basically, what I do is I apply strength conditioning training into the world of trekking and mountaineering, something that is just not really done a huge amount of in the adventure world. And there are some applications of it, but it's something that just really needs to be a lot more of it. And my big thing is I'm going to get you fit, strong and resilient for your dream adventures, and it's something that I absolutely love to do. Now today we are going to be talking all about strength training. I firmly believe that every single mountaineer should be doing some type of strength training in their preparation. Every single one. Now the utilization and application of this is going to be different from person to person, but as a general principle, you'd be absolutely mental not to be including it. And I'm going to explain exactly why in today's presentation. Now, strength training was really introduced into the mountaineering world and the adventure athlete world by the guys at Uphill Athlete, who are sort of pioneers of strength conditioning into the adventure world. And they did a really fantastic job of popularizing this a little bit. Admittedly, and they said in their own words, they kept their strength training very simple, just to keep things very simple for the mountaineering world, so people didn't get too complicated with it and didn't sort of second guess themselves, and they just kept things as simple as they can, and they still sort of stick with those principles today. Today I'm going to expand a little bit more on it in different videos as well. In this series, I'm really going to be getting into the depths of strength training because it is such a broad subject and people spend literally their lives going into it. And there is a lot of value to be had from going into this subject a little bit deeper and learning how to apply it into your own training, or at least understanding where people are coming from when they tell you to do it. So let's get into it. So traditionally, as I said before, strength training has really been overlooked in the endurance world for even today, like with all modern sports science and modern strength and conditioning. A lot of endurance athletes are very hesitant to use strength training. A lot of people are very concerned about, use of time. And they're like, why would I be lifting heavy weights when I could be out running or could be out hiking? Or they might be concerned about putting on extra weight, and they might be concerned about getting slower, and a whole bunch of other things. All these old hang-ups are very common. But in all honesty, when it comes to any of these sort of excuses or hesitations around strength training, when you actually look at the science, which there is a huge amount of these days, it really does not add up. Meaning there's so many incredible benefits of a proper strength training program for an endurance athlete. And if you really take a step back and think about it in a very analytical way, it's absolutely amazing, and it should be part of your preparations. And we're going to explore that today. When it comes down to strength training for mountaineers, there's really four big benefits which we're going to be exploring today. There's a whole bunch of other ones, but like these are the big four that we're really going to hammer on home. Number one, injury prevention. Number two, movement economy. Number three, hiking speed or climbing speed. And number four is strength reserve. So we're going to dive into each of those a little bit more detail. So first up, strength training for injury prevention. Now, this is probably the single most important reason behind strength training, like beyond improving your performance, beyond improving your capacities on the mountain, beyond anything like that. If you're getting injured or you're carrying injuries, it's a game ender, really, and it's just not something you want to be dealing with. If you're sort of if you can't train and if you can't climb, then there's no other point to any type of training. So this really is the single most significant point. Now, a huge amount of mountaineers in the world are carrying long-term injuries. It just seems to be a byproduct of the endurance nature of the sport. So a huge amount of mountaineers that I talk to struggle long-term with things like foot issues, with knee pain, with hip pain, with lower back pain. For the people a bit more climbing orientated, a bit more upper body issues, and it's such a common thing, and so many people are just training around it. And the issue here is, number one, it just makes all your training and all your hiking and all your climbing and all of everything that really much more difficult than it needs to be. If you're pushing through knee pain on these massive descents, you're not going to be having a very good time. You're not going to be able to perform at your best. If you're dealing with foot pain and you can't, train your best and you can't prepare for the mountain so well, it's just not going to be a good thing. And that's pretty significant there. And then also on top of that is injuries on the mountain are just not a good idea, or good news, I should say. Basically, if you get a sprained ankle on the mountain, that's game over. If you pull your hamstring on the mountain or tear your hamstring on the mountain, that's probably game over. If you throw your back out on the mountain, that's game over. And that's something you really just do not want to be dealing with. But a lot of mountaineers tend to sort of forgo the fact of injury prevention in their training and building resilience to stop these things happening. It's so important and critical, because if you're spending all this time, you're spending all this money, spending all this effort to actually get up and take on this like potentially once in a lifetime chance to summit this mountain or to take this climb or hit this route or whatever you're doing, and you get injured, you're going to be regretting that for the rest of your life. So you really want to be thinking about this. Now, and the beauty of this is that structured strength training program is the single best thing you can do to prevent both acute and overuse injuries. Now, this is not something that I've just said myself. This is actually, there's a huge amount of science behind this, and probably the best one that, the best study that sort of shows this is a very big review study, which looked at the effectiveness of a number of different exercise types or interventions to prevent sports injuries, which were both acute and overuse injuries. Basically, they looked at a total of 25 trials, which included over 26,000 participants with almost 3,500 injuries, which were analyzed in this review. So it's absolutely huge, and it's got so much data in it. And what it came out with, it sort of looked at the value of stretching, the value of proprioception training, which is about balance training more or less, and strength training, and looked at if they were beneficial for acute and overuse injuries. And basically what it came out with was saying that stretching by itself wasn't doing really anything, and it wasn't really preventing injuries at all if it was just applied by itself. And proprioception training was seeing some small results in certain areas, but then strength training just came out as a massive leader there. And basically they came out and said that strength training reduced sports injuries to less than a third, which are acute injuries like hamstring issues, knee issues, all of that. And then overuse injuries could almost be halved by simply following a structured strength training program. So that's so incredibly significant. And if I stop this presentation here, that's all you really need to know to put strength training into action and really put a serious amount of thought behind it. But next one, what we're going to move on to is strength training for movement economy. Basically, movement economy is the oxygen uptake required at a given submaximal velocity, meaning how much oxygen do your muscles require when you're running at a certain speed, which isn't near your maximum, or if you're hiking at a certain speed, which isn't near your maximum, how much oxygen that you need to do. And basically, strength training improves this movement economy and improves your oxygen uptake required. So you don't need quite as much oxygen, or you utilize the oxygen you're taking in a little bit better. All in all, this leads to a delay in time to exhaustion, meaning you can work at a higher work rate for longer without getting exhausted when you're on the mountain or when you're training, which is so incredibly significant. Now, this really is one of the key aerobic indicators of performance and endurance activity. So whether you're climbing, whether you're running, whether you're cycling, whether you're just doing a big hike or whatever, this is one of the very key indicators of performance. So it's very important to improve. And then what this really means is for every single step that you take, whether you're running, whether you're climbing, whether you're hiking, whether you're doing whatever, or every single movement you take, you're going to use less energy, which, as we know, when you're going for hours and hours and hours, for days and days and days, potentially weeks and weeks and weeks, the value of saving energy every single step is so incredibly important. And strength training has been shown to improve this. In theory, there's no direct studies on this, but in theory, this could be very important for dealing with high altitude as well. Number one, we know that physical exertion and exhaustion are risk factors when it comes to altitude sickness. So anything you can do to reduce this sense of exertion when you're doing your required tasks and reduce the likelihood of exhaustion is going to be beneficial for preventing AMS. Pretty significant there. And then also, if you look at it in theory, if you can improve your oxygen uptake required for whatever movement velocity you're doing, that's probably going to be better, more beneficial in a low oxygen environment or an environment where you can't utilize as much oxygen. In theory, that makes sense. I wouldn't, there's no studies around that, but that's food for thought there. Again, this isn't just me talking about it. There is a lot of studies behind this. Unfortunately, with this type of stuff, there's no studies around mountaineering. There's no studies around hiking or anything like that. It really, 99% of studies on this type of stuff is around runners, and seen as pretty similar to demands. And we can safely say it's more or less the same thing. But basically, this review looked at the effects of explosive training, which is sort of like power training or plyometric training, and also heavyweight training, and looking at their effect of improving running economy. So this was another review. So it's not just a single study, but it looked at 16 different studies, and sort of checked out the results there. And basically, it concluded that explosive training and heavyweight training are effective concurrent training methods to improve running economy within a few weeks. So what that means is if you are applying explosive training and heavyweight training alongside your usual endurance activities, that's what concurrent means, it can be effective in improving running economy even within a few weeks. However, they said if you can do a long-term training program, that's going to be necessary to get the best possible improvements in run economy. So no one would be reeling if you're preparing for a mountaineering trip. You wouldn't be doing it for 4 weeks. You'd be doing it strength training in some shape or form, pretty much your entire prep, to get the best benefits out of it. So yeah, that's pretty significant there. Next one is strength training for hiking speed or climbing speed, or however you want to phrase that. Basically, the ability to maintain an adequate hiking or climbing speed is a key indicator of performance on the mountain, pretty much because if you're lagging behind the pack and if you're sort of working at the higher levels of your actual speed that you can do for a longer period of time, you're going to get tired quicker, and it's just not a good thing. And if you can improve your speed that you can do to a given task and be more comfortable with those speeds, that's going to be so much more beneficial on the mountain, and it's pretty self-explanatory there. The science behind this one is we're looking at the military. This is sort of where all the stuff around heavy loads and heavy pack carrying comes out. And basically, they obviously do a lot of heavy pack training, and they were looking at this particular review was looking at the effects of a few different types of physical training on the time it took for individuals to complete a set distance while carrying an external load, which was the majority of the weight was carried in a backpack. So they basically looked at a few different types of training and said, will this improve if I have to go hike with a heavy backpack of like 30, 40 kilos? Do I have to hike like 20 kilometers? What's going to get me quicker? Something like that. Those aren't the exact numbers, but that's pretty much what they're looking at. And basically what they found was aerobic training alone and resistance training alone were beneficial and had some small effects. So if they were just doing running or just doing hiking, it did have some benefits to improve this. And if they were just doing strength training, it did have some benefits, but they concluded that a combination of the two substantially improved their load performance, which is pretty self-explanatory. If you're doing strength training and aerobic training, that's going to be the best thing you can do to improve your speed on the mountain. Pretty straightforward. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about today is strength training for strength reserve. So this is something that was really brought to light by Uphill Athlete, again, in the mountaineering world. So I'm not going to dive too deep into it because I'm sure a lot of people listening will be relatively familiar with this. But basically, strength reserve is the difference between your maximal strength and the strength required for a given task. So a really simple example of this, if you're climbing with a full load on your back, say you're going up a super, super steep incline and you're going for hours and hours and hours and hours, and every single step you take requires 30% of your maximal strength. So the maximal amount of muscle fibers that you can utilize for the task, the maximum amount of force you can produce, because you have so much load on, you literally have to use 30% of your maximal strength every single step you take. In this example, you're going to get knackered incredibly quickly. You're not going to make your summit. You're going to be exhausted beforehand and you're going to have to turn back. However, if you say went away and you did 8 weeks of strength training and you improved your maximal strength and you came back on the mountain with the same load, the same route, and you climbed up, and then instead of, and now that you're stronger, every single step you took 10% of your maximal strength, that's going to delay fatigue significantly. That's going to improve your performance significantly. That's going to make you a lot more comfortable significantly. And, that's pretty self-explanatory. And this can apply to climbing as well. So the same thing, if you're doing your climb and you're utilizing a huge percent of your maximal strength for every single move you take, or every single hold you take, you're going to fatigue really quickly. But if you can improve your maximal strength, increase the difference between your maximal strength and the strength required, you're going to delay your fatigue. Pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, that's all summed up. If you increase your maximal strength, any given task will require less effort, leading to less fatigue, leading to delayed exhaustion, leading to improved performance, leading to a more likelihood of your summit success. Pretty straightforward, and that is very, very important. So in summary, what I'm going to break this down, strength training is essential in mountaineers preparations. And in my opinion, you'd be absolutely mental, you'd be absolutely crazy not to be doing a consistent strength training program if you're leading up to a mountaineering expedition. Black and white, every single person should be doing it. As I said, the application of this is going to be different from person to person, depending on their training experience, depending on the injury history, depending on their equipment availability, depending on their time availability. There's a million of different ones way you go about this, but every single person should be doing some type of strength training. In summary, it's going to reduce your injury risk. It's going to improve your performance. It's going to make everything feel easier. And one thing I didn't mention before, it's just going to give you a huge confidence boost. Anyone who's done a bit of strength training in their life will know after about 4, 5, 6 weeks of consistent work, you start feeling amazing in your body. You start feeling strong. You start feeling confident. You start feeling like you can take on the world. And that mental aspect of that is so incredibly important in a challenging sport and a challenging occupation like mountaineering. And any little mental boost you can have to get you through is going to be worth its weight in gold. So that's very, very important as well. Now, what I want to be really, really clear about is when I'm talking about strength training, that does not mean a selection of random exercises or endless repetitions. So the random exercises is just something that's absolutely terrible, and that happens a lot in the training world. And it's really, really common if you're training in a gym and say you're getting your workouts written out on a whiteboard. So you might be going to a CrossFit gym, you might be going to a HIIT gym, you might just be going to a local gym and they're just writing out workouts. There's no thought behind that thing. There's a good workout in itself, but it's just a selection of random exercises, and it's not a good long-term approach for you. The same thing if you're training by yourself and you're just throwing random workouts together each day. You're like, today I'm going to do this, this, and this. It's just not a good long-term approach, and it's not very great. Same thing if you're working with a personal trainer or coach and they don't have a long-term plan for you and they're just giving you random workouts and they can't explain a long-term approach. Again, you're wasting your time. You might get some benefits, it might be good, but comparatively to something that's a long-term progression plan, something that's structured out, you're really, really just shooting yourself in the foot and you're missing out on so many benefits. So if you're going on down the random approach and you're not following something that's structured, you're almost wasting your time. I'll put it like that. And it's just not something you should be doing. The same thing goes for just doing high repetition training and endless repetition training. So that high repetition stuff is very, very important in a mountaineer's preparations, and that's developing something called muscular endurance, which we're going to be doing different videos on that around that. But all what we're talking about today, when it comes to injury risk, when it comes to improving your performance, when it comes to making easier and improving your hiking speed, that's not this high repetition training. What we're talking about is heavy load, so high resistance, low repetition training, which is structured and which has a lot of rest around it. That is what you need to be doing to get these benefits. And that's something so many mountaineers miss out on because they hear strength training. They're like, sweet, I'm just going to do 500 step-ups. It'll give you some benefits, and it is important, that type of training, maybe not the 500, but it's not what we're talking about today. So in conclusion here, mountaineers want to be working off a structured, progressive strength training program, which develops both maximal strength and muscular endurance. If you're missing any of those portions, if you're missing the structured, if you're missing progressive, you're missing maximal strength, you're missing muscular endurance, you're really missing out in your strength training and you're not getting the benefits you need. So you might be hearing me getting a little bit worked up about this, but it's such an important point to get your head around, and you really, really do need to make sure you're doing this if you want to get the best results out of it. So to wrap things up, if you don't know how to do this and you are aware that, all right, now I've watched this video, I know I need to improve my strength. I know it's going to be great, but I actually don't know how to apply this. Swing me an email at rowan@summitstrength.com.au or check out my programs at summitstrength.com.au. This is what I do for a living. There's taking trekkers and mountaineers, getting them fit, strong, and resilient for their adventures, applying strength programming, applying conditioning programming, applying mobility work, applying a very, very structured, holistic program to take you from point A to actually absolute summit in a very, very comfortable way. So if you do need help with this, reach out, please. Don't mess around and trying to figure it out yourself if you're not 100% confident, because you can get a lot of benefits out of this, and it does make it a lot easier if you're working with a coach. So I do hope you've enjoyed this video today. I hope you got some insights in there, and I hope you have enjoyed it. If you do have any questions, shoot me an email at that address. I'm more than happy to expand on anything. But if not, have a lovely day, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.